In our classes screencast video, we learned how to create a class. So as an example, we created a person class and we assigned this class two attributes, a single constructor and a single method. But we didn't do anything with the class. Now we are going to use this class from our main class here, and we are going to use it inside of our main method. So inside of our main method, what we are now allowed to do is to declare variables of type person. So I could write or declare variable in the following way: person p1, and this would be a completely legal line of code because we've created the class person that we are now able to use as a type. Of course, so far I've only created a reference to the class over here. I did not create an object. In order to create an object, I need to use the new keyword. So I'm going to do an assignment statement here, where I'm going to write p1 equals new and then person. Now, here I need to fill in the parentheses with something that is dictated by the constructor in the person class. So if we go back to the person class, we can see that we have a single person, a single constructor in the class person, and this one requires us to specify two parameters, or two values for parameters rather. We need to specify a string and we need to specify an int. So we'll try and do that. So as for a string, I'm going to write Anders here, and as for an int, I'm going to write 34. These are of course completely arbitrary values, but we need to adhere to the fact that we need to provide a string as the first parameter and an int as the second parameter. Once we've written this line of code here, we've created our first object. Now we have one object in existence. I could interact with this object by calling its methods. So in order to call a method on the newly created object, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a reference to that object through our variable p1 here. So what I can do is I can write p1. Now I have a hold of my new object, and then in order to call a method on that object, I'm going to write dot and then the name of the method that I want to call. Now we've only declared a single method in our person class as it is. So for now, this is the only method that I could utilize. Of course, there were other methods. I'm not going to dive into those right now, but this is the only method that we specified, and this is the only method that we'll assume that we can use so far. So let's try and run the program and see what happens. We can see that the program outputs my name is Anders, my age is 34. So let's dive into why that is. When we write this line of code up here, what actually happens is that we are allocated memory for a new object of type person, and then we are calling the constructor on the person class that takes as parameter a string and an int. And the reason that this is the constructor that is called is because we provided here a string and an int. Of course, we need to adhere to the fact that person might only have this constructor, and this is indeed the case in this scenario here. So here we have to use this constructor because there is no else constructor, no other constructor here. So when we do that, we call the constructor here with the values Anders and 34. Now what is going to happen with those values? Well, if we go into the constructor here, we can see that the value that comes in here, the first value of type string, which was Anders, is being used to assign a value to the attribute name. So after this line of code here, our attribute name has the value Anders. The value of the second parameter here is used to assign the attribute age a value. So this means that the attribute age is getting the value 34 assigned. Once these two lines are done, our object has been created. We are zoning out of the constructor again, and we are looping back into main. So now we have a person object that has two attributes, and the value of the name attribute is Anders, and the value of the age attribute is 34. Now what happens down here then is that particular object we will call a method on. We will call the getInfo method to be specific, and if we go in here we see that the getInfo method will get the value of the attribute name and combine it with the string my name is, and it will get the value of the attribute age and combine it with the string my age is, and in both cases it will print these strings to the screens. And this is why we're seeing the result that we're seeing down here.